Hello guys, Matt Robinson here again, and today I want to show you and introduce you to episode 7, Discovering Property and Culture.
We're a product of the influences that surround us.
I knew from the age of 15 that I was going to end up in property.
We've got some fantastic guests, Colin Becker and Daniel Major.
You can't achieve, a positive outcome if you're not putting the shift in.
The principles by which you live your life are the most important thing, and you have to earn those.
Both significant advocates of the property world across London and the West End, and representatives of Metras, who are a leading property management company of various disciplines in the capital.
And that's the way it's going to go, and you've got to get on that train.
It's not what happens to us in life, it's how we deal with it.
But if you judge a goldfish by its ability to climb a tree, that goldfish is never going to achieve anything. Episode 7 is going to be really cool. It's really engaging. We talk about things that you would not expect. So make sure you watch all of this.
I'm going to go deep here.
See you soon. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, hello. Welcome to another episode of the Facilities Management Exchange. Quite a different one here for you today. We've got two very interesting guests that are very, very happy to be here to collaborate with us. It's the second episode of 2026. It'll be releasing soon. I'd like to introduce you to Daniel Major.
Hi.
How you doing, Dan? You all right?
Good. Yeah, all right. Thank you.
You had an all right day?
Yeah, busy.
Busy? What
Busy
you
in the
been
world
doing?
of property management. Well, dealing with an application for a tenant who's looking to sign the lease, and
Nice.
just various meetings with consultants on a redevelopment site, and then the nuts and bolts of property management for you.
Yeah, of course, yeah. Did you have a good Christmas?
You know what? It was a good break, actually. Very restful. Needed the recharge.
Yeah,
But,
as we all do this time of year.
But, the last 2 weeks, it's been, back to it, and it's been good.
Yeah, a million miles an hour.
Yes, that's it.
Yeah, it has been. Brilliant. And we're also joined by Colin Becker. Hello, Colin.
Hi,
How are
mate.
you?
I'm good, and you?
I'm all right, mate. Yeah.
Good to see you again.
Yeah, good to see you again. This is the second run round for me and you, isn't it?
It is. We're all old timers at this.
Old timers at this,
Yeah.
mate. Yeah. How are you doing? You all right?
I'm well, thank you.
Have you had a good day?
It's been good.
Yeah?
Good, yeah. Busy.
It's good to see that the arm's no longer in a sling, Colin.
Correct,
To be
yeah.
fair. How is it? Is it all...
Yeah, well, I had reconstructive surgery on the wrist, but yes, on the mend and onwards and upwards.
You got plenty of forward motion on it and all that stuff?
I'm getting there.
You're getting there?
I'm getting there.
Good stuff,
I'm getting
good
there.
stuff.
Yeah.
You'll be on the paddle court before
Correct.
you know it.
Yeah.
Correct.
We'll end up with tennis elbow then.
Yeah,
won't
you're right. Moving on to my next injury. Yeah,
exactly,
no.
yeah. Well, you get to a certain age, same as me, and
You
just
do.
things start to drop off,
Correct.
don't they? That's
They
just
do.
the way it is.
They do indeed.
Yeah.
They do indeed.
Well, listen, guys, thank you very much for joining us today. It's lovely to have you here, and thank you very
thank
much
you.
for supporting the podcast.
Yeah,
and,
no, thank you for having us.
Absolutely.
And what it is we're trying to achieve. I always start with the same question for all of our guests, and I'll go to you first, Dan, and then
Sure.
we'll move over to you, Colin. Tell us how you actually came to end up within the built environment property facilities management world.
You know what? I mean, a lot of teenagers don't know what career they're going to go into. I knew from the age of 15 that I was
Really?
going to end up in property.
Right.
My late mum,
Yeah.
she worked in the residential world. And
Tough world, that as well. Yeah, that's a
and
tough world.
they were selling their house in North London, had a building surveyor round
Yeah.
to the house, and started asking them questions. Well, what's that? Oh, I'm measuring this room, and
Yeah.
then he's got the damp meter on the wall. I'm like, what's this? And then he's on the binoculars, and
Yeah.
before you know it, I'm doing work experience for an agent in Kingsbury.
Really?
And then literally the rest is history. After that, I went through the Chartered Surveyor Training Trust when I was 19.
Wow.
So I pretty much left secondary school and went straight in. So very much was working 4 days a week and then
Yeah.
a day release.
Right.
So different courses, where
I love the term
college.
day release, by the way. That's really good. Good way to describe it. Yeah.
So it was a day release, doing various different courses on an apprenticeship scheme.
Yeah.
So starting my career at D&J Levy.
Oh, I know DJ.
Yeah. So worked there for 8 years.
Right.
So it was day release, doing different courses, and then did my degree, and then
Right.
my final year of my degree, I did my APC.
Right.
Started that was quite full on actually.
Was it?
Yeah, because I'd already worked in the industry for 6 years.
Right.
So I was well versed with managing property and.
So you kind of went back into that education.
Yes.
So that was a difficult transition.
Yeah, no. It just was, 4 days of like managing your properties, 5 days into 4. You know what it's like after a bank holiday.
Yeah, it's a challenge.
It was like that for 7-8 months.
Wow.
For 8 years.
Yeah.
Apart from the summer, so I had to get the summer off.
Yeah.
And then I did my last year, my degree, my first year in my APC. So it was like 4 days a week of working, and then straight into studying on a Friday.
Right.
Do my dissertation, and then do my first year on my APC, and then the rest is history. Been in the industry for pushing 25 years now.
Really? Wow. Well, there's not that many people. So how did you? Was it just the fact? Was it because your mum worked in the industry, and then this guy came in, and you were like, oh, do you know what? That's quite an interesting. I wouldn't mind getting involved in that. Or was it? There was always that inclination because of your mum.
You know what? Yes, that.
Yeah.
But customer services, I was always going to end up in some role. I had some interest in hotel management initially.
Really?
Because I like the idea of sort of providing a sort of VIP service to, in some respect, and just property management has that right fit. And,
it does, yeah.
That's how I started my career. And obviously, when you're doing your APC, you've got to do different. You've got to work in different areas, and as part of the general practice, sort of process. But property manager is definitely the right fit because I'm working for landlord clients, tenant clients, and it just naturally just happened, and it just haven't looked back.
Okay, so that's brilliant. So you started your career that way. So what did your mum say to you when she found out that you were going down that route? Did she warn you against it, or was she like, no, go for it?
No, absolutely very supportive. My late mum and my dad always pushing me.
Yeah.
They knew I wanted to get the educational side of it.
Yeah.
First one in my family to get a degree.
Oh, congratulations!
Thank you.
That's a very good thing. Yeah.
And they were very supportive the whole way through.
Yeah.
It was a lot of sacrifice. You're going to work every day. You're sort of starting from like 8 till like 6, say, and then you've got to go home, and then you've got to study for an exam, or you've got to get on with some coursework, and then you've got to submit that in, and then you've got the day out the office. I think the benefit was in those days I didn't have you didn't have these smartphones, so you weren't always connected in the same way that you are today.
That's true.
So there was an opportunity on day release to literally switch off and focus while I was at uni and get into my game.
Yeah.
But my mum was very supportive. Yeah, she when I was doing my APC preparing for the interview, she literally was firing questions at me, because obviously you don't know what's going to be, what you're going to be asked.
Well, of course not. Well, that's the point of an exam, isn't it?
So she different competencies, she would just be literally firing away questions, and then I'll practice my, presentation.
Yeah.
It was a rent review actually for one of the restaurants not far from where we used to work. So I won't say though, just for, because it's confidential. But it's. I look back at some very fond memories, but I had to make a lot of sacrifices.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
You can't achieve, a positive outcome if you're not putting the shift in.
Yeah.
And there were moments where, now I like to see the world, go travelling, and there was moments where there was my mates were, taking a year out and seeing the world, and I had to sort of, literally shut off from the noise because
you're grafting and studying.
Of course, I just felt, I need to just carry on with the journey and just focus. You'll be able to do all of that after you've qualified.
Yeah.
Your target is to get your different courses out the way, whether it be the HNC to the degree and then the full charter. I was very focused, on that. But obviously there was an element of missing out. But I look back and I made the right decision because. When my mates came back from travelling, it was a credit crunch.
Yeah.
So I'm glad I didn't literally, park my studies to come back into a very difficult market at the time. And I just went through that whole journey, and it was a lot of work. It really, really was. There were moments where, you couldn't go out on one Saturday night because you need to prepare for an exam for the following week or get some coursework done. But that was fine. But I think the key. One of the biggest things, my takeaways from that is it set me up really well for where I am now, because I always say in property management, you've got to have a system, you've got to have a structure, with day to day, and juggling and balancing and prioritising, right?
Yeah.
And it helped me very early on to sort of build that base.
Yeah.
And, I'm glad I went through that. You know, if I was saying to a younger Dan Major now, just keep focusing, keep on that journey. Don't think that, you know, the end game just yet, just one step at a time.
Yeah.
And there were, you know, like with any of these things, there are difficult moments when you're studying, and you know, obviously you're thinking, am I going to pass? Am I get, you know? And, I mean, look, I put everything into it, and this is the thing my mum said to me: if you work hard, you put a shift in. If it isn't the outcome that you want, where the grade, or you didn't get the degree you want, or you know you didn't pass first time, but I did, at least you gave it your all.
Yeah.
So that work ethic, my mum literally instilled in me very early on.
Yeah.
And as well as my dad, you know, being an ex-London taxi driver.
Yeah.
Always.
So you had the knowledge.
Yeah.
So that's probably where you get your discipline from.
Yeah.
Because it takes discipline to
Yes.
be able to do that at a young age.
Yes.
And getting the knowledge, that's discipline. I don't
Yeah.
care what anyone says. That is disciplined, isn't it? To be
Yeah.
fair.
Yeah. No. Absolutely. It's. Yeah. I mean, it was. I mean, that final year of my degree, with my first year of my EPC and then working, that was a lot of juggling. But I
Yeah.
got through it. You know, I got I was 1 mark off of a first.
That's all right. Well done.
Which you know, I got an upper 2-1, but that's what I aimed for. I was
Yeah.
like, I want to upper 2-1.
Yeah.
If I get that, great. If I get anything more, even better.
Yeah.
But you know, you get comments from people. Oh, why don't you ask them to sort of look at it? You know, you sure they've made it? I was like, look, I started with an upper 2-1. That's what I wanted, and that's what I got, and
Exactly.
I was happy with that.
Yeah.
And I was at 1 year to go to my EPC. And you know there was some tough moments, because again at that point, you know, you've got to prepare for any question, as I said before. You know,
Yeah.
you know, it's a bit of luck perhaps on the day, because you don't know what they're going to ask you. But I was
Yeah.
super prepared. I did my best and I passed first time. And you know, looking back now, it's the best decision I ever made. All the sacrifice, and
Yeah.
you know, I'm 16 years post qualified.
Yeah.
You know, and yeah, there doesn't go a day goes by that I don't walk into my lounge.
Yeah.
So I've got a photo of me I'll show a bit later on. But you know, where just as a reminder of you know how much commitment I put in, standing there with a photo with my parents, and see how proud they are of me. And you know, if any aspiring surveyor, you know, whether you work in facilities management, property management, general practice, whatever area, if you put a shift in and you work hard and you're focused, you will get the result you want. It might not happen straight away. And don't be disheartened, because sometimes when you learn from your mistakes as well.
Yeah.
You know, there was moments with probably certain exams that, you know, perhaps, you know, I might have not studied something I should have, perhaps in
Yeah.
the same way, and might
Yeah.
not got the result I wanted. But at the end of the day, if you focus, you work hard, and you put a shift in, you will get the results you want in life.
Well, you need to learn from things that you fail at as well, don't you?
Yeah.
Like it's not
Yeah.
you can't always win, because if you win all the time, you don't grow, do you? You know,
Yes.
so a little bit of failure mixed in with an awful lot
Yeah.
of success is probably
Yeah.
a good thing rather than a bad thing. But show us that picture.
Yeah,
Right, let's get this out, because
absolutely.
I've seen it, by the way, guys. But it's a lovely
Absolutely.
picture, and it really is, you know, indicative.
go.
You can see the pride there from
You know.
your mum and your dad.
You do say
fair.
I haven't aged much, which is actually quite nice.
No, you don't. I don't think you did. I think all you've
Apart
done,
from the beard.
all you've done is grown a beard, to be fair, which makes me feel terrible. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Like
You know, yeah.
I've got shorter, fatter, and greyer. You know. So,
You know, it's just, you know, that first thing I walk through the door, I see that, you know, and
Yeah.
it just reminds me every day, and you know how proud they were, you know, of me on the day. And
oh, brilliant.
you know, when you start that journey, you think, oh my God, 8 years, that's a long time, and
Yeah.
it was. But you know what, I just kept going and just kept seeing, you know what, keep focusing, keep seeing it. You know, you're going to get a degree at the end of it, you're going to get your charter at the end of it, and you know.
Do you know what? It's really, really nice, because you can actually feel the pride, you know,
Yeah.
and the enthusiasm coming out of you when you talk about it.
Yes.
And I think to still have that pride and enthusiasm now, is it 18 years later, you said?
So I'm 16 years post qualified.
16 years post.
Yeah.
You know, that's fantastic. The fact that you know you can still hark back at that, and it's a sense of pride for you, I think is fantastic. You know, so
yeah.
you know, anybody out there that's looking at you know, attending university, you know, it really is worth it if you want to take on a career across the property management sphere.
Just to add to all of that, I mean, I didn't want to go down the traditional route.
Yeah.
I wanted the work experience.
Yeah,
I wanted
you did
the
a bit of a mix,
qualifications,
didn't you? Yeah.
Yeah, you know, and it obviously naturally is going to be harder, because you've got responsibilities, and you're managing, you know, clients and properties, and you know, various relationships within the business externally, and
internal
you know,
and external stakeholders. It can be a challenge, can it? Yeah.
You know, and you know, you're learning to sort of manage those expectations from an early age, and to manage your time. As I say, you've got to have a system. Being in property management, probably being in any walks of life, and you know, trying to get the best outcome. You know, so you know, a lot of early memories that I take every day into everything that that I do. You know, I put a shift in. I literally throw everything, you know, every day, put a professional service in with my clients, colleagues, service partners. When I say clients, landlord clients, tenant clients.
Yeah, of course, because there's different ones, isn't there?
It's a changing market all the time.
Course,
You know, when I started, it was very much you're acting for the landlord, but now it's very much a community.
Yeah, it's fluid.
You know, you're not just acting for landlords, you're acting for tenants. You know, they're paying, you know, not on the rent side, but they're paying the services towards, you know, the common areas. And, you know, it's a very different market. You know, as I said to you earlier on about, you know, wanting to be in a customer service role.
Yeah.
You know, this like glove to hand. You know.
But this is what it is. You know, I mean, the role, it's people, isn't it? Like everything that we're doing every single day. And it doesn't matter whether you're a cleaner, a security officer, a front of house. It doesn't matter whether you're a manager, a director. You know, we're all, in essence, dealing with people daily, you know, and you know, having the ability to do that and do it well, I think sets you up to be able to have a fantastic career across our industry, which I think is fantastic. But let's park you for the minute, Dan.
Sure.
Let's find out a little bit about Colin. Hello, Colin.
Hello.
Tell us a little bit about yourself, mate. And also, you know, because I know your journey, and it's a really interesting journey. So tell us a little bit about that.
I mean, just celebrated 30 years at Metris, so...
go on, he's a life.
Yeah,
I call Colin a lifer.
Yeah, that's crazy. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, some ways seems like yesterday, but in others, you know, there's a lot of very, very fond memories out there. But, look, it's been an amazing journey, and I kind of, you know, look back with real kind of, as I said, fond memories of some amazing people that I've worked with. And it's funny, I was asked internally to do a LinkedIn post and whatnot, and without hesitation, I immediately came to the conclusion myself, I didn't want it to be about the deals because, you know, so often on the socials, it's about bought, sold, in my world, which is the transactional part of our business. You know, capital markets, lease advisory. It's very easy to sort of reel off all those deals that you've done, which, don't get me wrong, I'm very proud of, and
of course,
very proud to have been part of. But it's about the people, and you guys were alluding that to before. You know, you know, this business is very much relationship based. There's a lot of talk about AI and all kinds of stuff, which I'm sure we'll get onto. I know. But you know, that the value of that human-centric relationship is intrinsic to everything I do. And I've always, from day one, when I walk through the door, taken the view, A, I would advise as if it were my own. B, the problem is obvious, and the reason someone's calling you is because there's a problem, so don't state the obvious. My job is to bring solutions.
Of course.
And I've always tried to do that through a creative, entrepreneurial thought process. So it's been an interesting work with some amazing people, and again, I go back to, you know, kind of one of the things I really enjoy is we do a work experience program where we have people that are at uni or in school exploring ideas. And I'm such a believer in not sitting them in a room and in our business getting them to read leases or just look, but actually live the experience. So they'll come, they'll sit in meetings, and they're really kind of engaged in what we're doing, as opposed to kind of locked away. And breathing it and seeing what we do but one thing I say to them, and I try and get across to them, is, you know, set your stall out. It's about surrounding yourself with good people.
100%.
I agree with that. A good team is I just think it's like gold, isn't it? A good team, it really is.
And listen, that doesn't mean that everyone is almost kind of, you know, stuck in the same box of this is what we, you know, you've got to have different personalities in the room. But if there's a common goal, I mean, the word culture in any, you know, walk of life, I believe is so important to what we do as a business. And I think in some ways the property industry is slightly draconian and caught up from other sectors where, you know, dress down and, you know, we were talking before about, you know, it's years since I've put on a suit, a shirt and a tie.
No, I'm the same. And sometimes I think, oh, no, should I? Should I not? You know, and then sometimes I'll go
I
to
love
a
a
client.
suit though.
I do as well. But sometimes I'll go to a client meeting and I'm like, oh, how do I dress here? You know,
Again, going back to
what do I
people,
do? You know?
there are very few, but there are the odd client that I know would take offence if I didn't turn up in a certain, in a certain way.
Yeah.
So it'll be a suit and a tie. There are others that will look at me and like, have I lost the plot if I'm turning, what's going on?
It's accelerated post-COVID as well. If you guys noticed that.
Yes.
Because, I mean, I think prior to COVID, I was probably in a suit 4 days a week, to be quite frank. And I think after COVID, I'm maybe in a suit once or twice a month.
Yeah.
And that's the reality now, I think, that's crazy when I think about it. Yeah. But what a good point. Nobody's made that point before.
But no, look, it's interesting. And I was at Metris for a year unpaid. There was no job.
Yeah.
I graduated in 95.
Hang on, tell that story, because that's a really interesting story about how you actually got yourself into the industry, because you really put yourself out there, Colin. Didn't you? And I think that's brave. So I think that you should talk about that.
Yeah, look, I played the long game, and if there were a message, the guys that come in that do work experience again, I try and say to them, everyone's in a rush today, right? And that's the way the world works. If you want something to eat, when we were kids, you had to walk to the shop and buy a chocolate, or you had to go, you wanted to go to your mate's house, you get there, you'd say goodbye to your mum and dad, call them maybe when you were there, but you had to work out which bus, which tube to get.
You did.
Everything is like literally drops out of the sky now. I want something to eat, press a couple of buttons. I want to get somewhere, I press a button.
So true, hasn't it? How the world's changed.
And the kids today, like they come in and I can see, and they're like, some of them have been very open at going, I'm finished by 30. And I'm like, you don't want to have made it by 30 and lost it by 40.
Yeah.
Right? Trust me, when you get to 40, 50 or whatever, then you live a comfort. But they were in a rush.
Yeah.
And I'm a believer, if you're as good as you say you are, it will come to you.
Yeah.
Like Daniel was saying, it's graft, it's hard work, roll your sleeves up. There are certain principles, never compromise on your reputation. That's something that's sacrosanct to me, and I'll never do.
Fundamental.
Correct. But they're always, it's a rush. And so I was the opposite. I kind of went in at 95. I got told you could be here till Christmas. We're not going to pay you.
Yeah.
I was first in, last out. Made myself a nuisance. The junior at the time, as they were called then.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
A derogatory term probably today, but today we call them a grad.
All right, we've had floaters on the show and everything.
Yeah,
you can't say that anymore. Either.
Was in place, and I thought, I could give this a go. And at Christmas, they were like, "We love you, but we can't pay." I was like, I was living at home with my mum and dad. What different? I knew, a bit like Daniel, there's a family history of property.
Yeah. I
was very fortunate. I was. Funny enough, that my father's got a residential business locally, which everyone thought I was going to go into, and he and I had, I think, one conversation, and I said, you know what? And he was smart, because again, going back to when I was studying, it was like, listen, you're not going to just kick around for 8 weeks and put your feet up.
Yeah.
If you want to get into this industry, in this sector, find out about it. So I worked in industrial.
Yeah.
And I thought, logistics today different. But back in the day, I didn't want to get involved in that side of the business. So I looked at management, thought, maybe not, but I like the buzz of the transactional side. Yeah. I worked it out. So over the course of 4 summers, I worked at different places, built up some work experience. Yeah. Probably, which is why I'm so keen on giving the work. Yeah. And it really gave me a basic understanding of, okay, I think I like this or I don't like this. And so, I always knew I wanted to get into property. I had my foot in the door. I wasn't being paid, but I was living at home. Yeah. So what? And then...
Sponging up that experience.
Yeah. In May 96...
And sponging off his mum and dad.
Yeah. Well, no, I was a qualified tennis coach.
Oh, right, okay.
Sorry. I was a sports. So I was a qualified coach. So I was earning money. On the weekends I could try and coach and cover my X's and Y's at home. And it got to May 96. The junior left. They offered me a job, and I said, "Come on, I've done my my probate period here." And as I say, the rest is history. And 30 years later, I'm very proud of what, some amazing people and I together have built, with great teams and great people around us. And
because you would have seen like significant change
massive
during that period.
Yeah.
And sometimes you find yourself just sort of sitting down looking back to what it was as rather than what it is now, and how
the business or the sector. Or
the business, I think. Let's talk about the business first and then the sector. Because I think because you've been there for so long, and it was I mean, I don't know how big it was when you joined, but I'm guessing it was a
There
lot
was
smaller.
there was half a dozen of us and half a dozen small buildings, and now we're a business where we've got over 5 billion under management.
Wow.
And we collect rent and service charge in excess of 350 million with 3,000 plus tenants.
Wow.
So that's
That's a big change.
yeah, it's a big change over the years. But again, we weren't in a rush. We've built it organically. We've of course made poor decisions, but we tried to make diligent decisions about the financial side of the business. COVID, which was an anomaly which no one saw coming. But I think we sit in a unique position in the sense that we are a very rare, we're a very rare business in the sense we're multidisciplinary.
Yes.
Okay, so we provide expertise across all whether it be management, capital markets, lease advisory. We've got accounts, we've got a professional team, valuation, and really sort of cradle to grave service. So in times where you need regular income, like on the management, we've got it there.
Right, okay.
And this is everything you say about, just going back to your point on the culture, I call it Metris culture.
Yeah.
We're all on one floor plate.
Yeah.
We're together 5 days a week.
Yeah.
And clients want quick, nimble decisions, right?
Of course they do. Yeah.
And we're all together, and it's just a fantastic place to work at.
Yeah.
I can't, I always say to people, the way you feel on a Sunday night about going to work on a Monday morning, I can't wait to get in.
I agree with that. Yeah, I do. I really agree with that. I think that because
He's a Tottenham fan, so the results
Yeah.
haven't been he's got as soon as he gets in.
You had to drop that in.
he just wants to get away
Only
from
a
the
matter of
weekend, doesn't he?
time, actually, but it had to be said. He's like, I want the weekend done with, and he's closer to the hope of a better result next weekend.
Yeah. He can start dreaming again on the Monday.
You had to do that.
I just wanted to fit the right.
You had to get there somehow.
Correct.
By the way, we had a long discussion
But he
about
queued me up.
Yeah, definitely did that, didn't I?
Yeah.
No, but I do think you're right. I think the culture of a business, I think that drives, I think, the performance of a business.
And the energy.
The energy, yeah. And the energy is important. A lot of us don't necessarily realise it. If you're around someone that's negative all the time, then you tend to become negative yourself. It's the same as, if you've got an individual in your team, and you'll know this, Colin, and so will you, Daniel, because you manage teams. If you've got an individual on your team that is hyper negative and that they're being very, very negative every day, they bring other members of the team down, and that starts to have a negative influence on your culture, performance, and so on and so forth. So I think, really maintaining that culture by, putting the right things in place is incredibly helpful for any business.
We're a product of the influences that surround us.
We are, yes.
And at the end of the day, if you're around people that inspire you, and not only that, as I said, it goes back, you just got to, my style of management has always been, I have to adapt. Yeah. I don't think, and it's an opinion, but I don't think you sit there and go, this is me. Yeah. The way that I would integrate with or engage with a member of staff will be totally different to another member of staff, because I have to invest that time in them and understand what they're about, what makes them tick. Ultimately, I want them to feel empowered and the best version of themselves.
I agree.
And I can't say, this is how I do it, take it or leave it. Yeah. I've got to step into, or try and step into their world and go, what makes Daniel or Joe or Helen or
what makes them tick?
Correct. Yeah. What's going to make them? Because ultimately, if they're not motivated, they don't feel part of something, they don't feel a culture. If they, it's like I always say in life, there's the who, the why, and the what. Yeah. And they have very different, the 3 W's, right? Yeah. And they all have varying impacts in your life. But if someone's sitting there at a desk or not sitting, but they're employed and they're kind of like, well, I don't know what the what is or what the why is, they're going to start failing.
That's
if
true,
the what and the why are I know what I'm doing, why I'm doing it, I love this. Yeah. And the who, as I said to you, it's about the people. Those are my 3 W's. Yeah.
But that's true. That is so true, actually. Yeah. I've never really heard it explained that way before, but that makes complete sense. If you haven't got those 3 elements, then, if any one of them is out of sync, then you're perhaps not getting the best out of it.
And it's really difficult. And that's why in this world, it's like, slow down. Like, why am I doing this? What am I doing it for? And who am I doing it with? Yeah. And if you can answer those 3 questions and feel satisfied, content, inspired, empowered, then
Yeah, I might start applying that principle. I quite like that one. I might nick that,
and
Colin, if that's all right.
And you know what? Every role within a business is important.
Yes,
From the front of
agreed.
house,
Yeah.
whether you're doing the administration role, whether you're, working professional to property management to agency to client accounting, every role is important within the business.
Yep.
I value every single person within the company for what they come to the table with, and culturally, and the service that we provide to our clients is underpinned by all of that.
Yeah, of
and that's why clients like to work with us, because there's
Yep.
continuity of service.
Yep.
People are happy, and it helps with the results that we try and get every day.
No, I agree. So let's move away from the business, and then let's talk about the industry. So sort of same question, really. How do you view the industry as because there's been some massive changes just in the last 5 years. Let's start with COVID. COVID was massive, and then we had technological advancements.
Look,
the Internet of Things, AI.
I'll kick it off, and then Daniel can talk about changes in his area of the business. But look, my background is central London offices in essence, okay? And the analogy I use is 25 years ago in a meeting or meeting someone for a coffee, you'd order a black or a white coffee with skimmed or semi-skimmed milk.
Yeah.
Now you walk in and there's 15 types of coffee and there's 10 types of milk, soya, oat, coconut, you name it, right?
Yeah.
The fundamentals of office buildings and occupiers hasn't changed. Businesses need space to occupy.
Yeah, of course.
But going back to the comment I made 10 minutes or so ago about property being slightly draconian, if you think about it in the sense that historically tenants would come along, look at a building or look at a floor, be expected to enter into protracted lease negotiations, none of which made any sense, because there's a lease which is so heavenly, the narrative in that lease is not understood by the common, the layman.
Well, it's legalese, isn't it?
Correct,
it's designed to be like that.
Exactly. What's a way-leave agreement? What's a license for alterations? What's dilapidation?
Yeah.
Landlords, for years, I've been banging on about they need to understand that their buildings need to become communities.
Yeah.
Looking at a tenant as a poor relation was the wrong way of looking at it.
Absolutely.
In this day and age, most people don't use the word tenants; they use them as clients, or occupiers, or customers. Okay, depending on who you're talking to. But looking at the tenant as the poor relation who effectively underpinned the value of the asset, in my mind, was always crazy. They're the most important. And think about it, there are a hell of a lot more tenants than there are landlords in central London.
Very true. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So the power shift from landlord to tenant was only a matter of time before it happened.
Yeah.
Tenants have wised up about what cheap design is. Most people now want to spend, if they're going to get a kitchen, they want the best kitchen possible. If they're going to get lighting, flooring, they just want the best finishes they can afford in their homes, and the same in their offices.
Right.
They know the difference between the cheap laminate and the decent laminate floor.
Yeah.
So the trajectory of office buildings and office space becoming more design led, end of journey facilities like bike shafts, it was all inevitable. It was only going to happen. And so there are, a plethora of variations in the office market, whether you're looking conventional leasing or the flex market. But the fundamentals are you have to provide a product, and it has to be best in class, and it has to be of quality. And you'll find occupiers, customers for the space. If not, it will sit there vacant. And what we've seen now is, and we're seeing more and more and more of, is that the traditional leasing method that we just discussed of leases is becoming replaced with the ability for occupiers, customers to be more agile, to walk in and say, right, people very rarely talk about, I need 3,000, 5,000 feet. It's, I need 40 desks.
Yeah.
I need 2 boardrooms. I need 3 pods. I need a breakout area. XYZ, and my budget's 25k a month or 50k a month, and I want to be in 6 weeks' time. Yeah. And they want that flexibility. And so that's the biggest change in the last sort of 10 years that you've seen, whereas beforehand, the markets were very clearly defined in terms of serviced offices were serviced offices, the likes of Regis, and co-working, the WeWorks and people like that. And then there was the conventional leasing market.
Yeah.
There's far more overlap between the two.
Yeah.
And there is a significant number, I think it's about 84% of requirements now in the market in central London under 5,000 feet are for fitted or managed space.
Really?
Yeah.
What do you think drove that change then? What do you think?
COVID was a large part of it because
Yeah.
suddenly people realised, oh my God, I've got 3, 4, 5, 6 years left on my lease. Is anyone ever going to come back to the office? Or
Yeah.
if they do, am I going to need half the space? Am I downsizing, upsizing? And I think, as I said,
So that people had to look into it. They had to increase their knowledge and
Yeah.
get a broader understanding of what took place in that environment.
yeah, but they want to be agile. And as I said, people aren't afraid to pay for that journey. You know, when I see conventional landlords and I go in and give advice on a conventional leasing basis on a building at X rent per square foot,
Yeah.
and I say, however, if you provide a product, we'll achieve 3 times that.
Yeah.
All right, you've got to take away your operational costs and your operating costs, but you're still about 30% better than the net effective rent you would to receive on a traditional basis. And they're like, how come? Because there are 2 parallel markets.
Yeah.
And people want that immediate. It's a bit like we were talking before. You want to press a button, you want to go.
Yeah.
They don't want those protracted lease negotiations
No.
that could take forever,
Right.
are expensive, etc. All the reasons I mentioned before. They want speed to transaction.
Okay, so how have you found how have landlords reacted to those changes? And
Well, the smart ones
Yeah.
have understood where the market is. I mean, if you look at all the landed estates in central London, the Crown, Grosvenor, Portman, I don't want to upset anyone if I forget,
Yeah.
Bedford Estates,
Yeah.
Howard Warden Estates, they've all got their offering. You
Yeah.
know, I was in a think tank session with Toby Courtard at GP before Christmas.
Right.
GP have got about 3 million square feet in central London, of which about 650,000 is their own fitted product.
Right.
And it's only increasing in size because they realise they need to have that offering.
Yeah.
Howard de Walden have got Elm Tree.
Yeah.
Have actually partnered with some guys called Space Maid.
Right.
They've got their. I mean, everyone has their own flex offering because they realise that that's where the market is. That's what occupiers want. We've got floors in building where landlords are resistant to
Yeah.
what we're talking about,
Right.
don't want to spend the money, and they're just sitting there vacant.
Yeah.
Because if I showed you, if you needed 40, 50 desks in central London at the moment, or 20 desks,
Yeah.
and I showed you, the chances are you're going to be looking at 12 options. You're going to, remember the 2 or 3 which you need to then go in and negotiate a lease, a rent-free.
Yeah.
Or you could walk in tomorrow, it's your dream office.
Yeah.
It ticks the boxes. And when you've actually looked at the figures, and we do some financial modelling to show basically what the conventional leasing model will show over a net position over, say, a 5-year term, and what a flex or managed option will show over a 5-year term, and there isn't a great amount of difference, and the tenant removes all the aggravation of those protracted lease negotiations and rent deposit deeds, and has to think about dilapidations at the end of the term and putting it back into the. It's just not something they want to entertain.
No, that's understandable.
Yeah.
So it's quite an interesting time then for the marketplace, really.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is that being replicated across the UK? Do you think, or is that something
regionally? It's much more of a struggle.
Yeah.
You know, central London has and always will, I think, be just in a bit of a bubble because of, you know, I've always mentioned in the past where it sits geographically between east and west. I mean, you know, the world's a fragile place at the moment, but central London, I don't want to say is bulletproof, but has always been resilient because, dare I say it has trusted advisors.
Yeah.
It has a financial regularity, you know, trusted legal system.
Yeah.
And
Good time zone.
correct. In uncertain times, you want to put your money, if you're an overseas investor, into a marketplace that is kind of very transparent, you understand, and has got trusted infrastructure in place where you feel that your money is relatively safe.
Yeah.
So yeah, look, it is fairly resilient, London.
Yeah.
But it is a different different story in the regions.
Yeah. Well, what do you think the future holds? Do you think we'll see
For
well, just for the marketplace? Do you think we'll see any large corrections like we've seen recently in terms of flex space
Look,
and things like that? Or any? Have you got a crystal ball or anything?
No, but what I would say, and take 30 years experience, the property market is cyclical like any other market.
Of course, yeah.
Okay? And if you look at any other market, stock market, gilt, as I said, it's cyclical and values increase and decrease.
Yeah.
And in our market, rental values and capital values will increase and decrease.
Yeah.
But I genuinely believe, and I've seen it with my own eyes, whereas in some markets those values fall over a certain period, they often come back, and we're now seeing, despite what you read, headline rents for better class space in some of London's submarkets reaching unprecedented levels.
Wow.
Because of what I've just said, it's cyclical.
Yeah.
So if you invest in anything, right?
Yeah.
And you expect to be in one day and out the next, you may as well roll the dice.
Yeah, of course.
But if you take a medium to a long term view in terms of investing in real estate, you tend to, you'll ride out markets where, as I said, values will increase and decrease. But so long as you're speaking to the right people.
Get that in there.
Yeah.
That's what we like to hear. That's what we like to hear.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's quite interesting. So obviously we've probably, I think we're seeing like a large drive now back to the office. I think people
Absolutely.
I think people are actually getting sick of, as I think to a certain extent, working from home on a more regular basis. Are you guys seeing that?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
And I personally, I'm a massive fan of the office environment.
Yeah.
Again, it comes always back to that culture.
Yeah.
That's built by people being around each other.
Agreed. Yeah.
And the metrics
Chats
culture
around
is,
the water cooler, as they say.
Exactly. But yeah, certainly very much seeing that. I mean, look, certain tenants, very much still hybrid, but I guess it comes down to the type of business they are. And but a lot of my buildings that I'm managing, it's a mix of everything really.
Yeah.
But for me, I've always been a fan of being in the office. I like being around people. I like the continuity of it. I like the collaboration.
Yeah.
The energy, as I was saying before.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
When you're at your home office, the door closed, it's not the same.
No, that's true. Yeah.
It just isn't. And and I can see why businesses are pushing that agenda. And
I think people are wanting to kind of come back as well, don't they? I mean, I notice every day the trains get a bit busier. I notice every day the car parks get a bit busier. I notice every day that there seems to be more people.
Apart from a Friday.
Yeah, Thursday's the new Friday, isn't it? That's we ain't changing that. I don't think, to be fair, But even Mondays, I think, are getting busier.
Oh, for sure. Yeah,
you have that old twats that they used to call it, didn't they?
You know what? If you're coming into the industry, you want to be round the experience, professionals like Colin.
I agree.
Where you're sponging up that information. You need to be listening, even just the way they're speaking on the phone, and dealing with issues and solving problems, and being around the business. Yes, of course, there's things you can learn away from the office. That doesn't change, but it's like having that hands-on experience.
Yeah,
you will get it no better than being in an office in my view, versus being away. Because you're seeing how decisions are being made, and you're going to grow as a professional.
Yeah.
But look, in my view, every business is different. From my perspective as a property manager, you're dealing with bricks and mortar.
Yeah.
You're dealing with landlord and tenant clients. They want to see a face behind you. They don't necessarily want to see somebody on a screen. This is what I like. This face-to-face interaction. And,
I agree. Yeah, I'm very much to that.
And. COVID certainly has changed things, but as you say, it's you're seeing the trains are busier, and that is very much a sign. Even the coffee shops and lunchtime, and you're seeing a lot more people around.
I think we're getting back to normal. I really do. I feel like it. I feel like it's getting back to normal, which I think is a positive. Not just for our industry, but I think all industries.
Yeah. I'm hugely against the work from home. I mean, as I said, as Daniel said, it's very much industry relative, but for what we do, one of the things that we pride ourselves on, however large we grow, is that personal service.
Of course, yeah.
A client could phone me and I'll go, you know what, 20 minutes, I'll
I'm round the corner.
Exactly.
100%.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Literally. I mean, I've done deals genuinely whereby I've emailed an agent on a deal and I know it's right for a client of theirs. They haven't responded. I've walked to their office, genuinely knocked at their door and said, Mark, do me a favour, you haven't responded. I haven't looked at it. I said, look at it, and we've done a deal. It's mental, but
No, but that's good. I like that, 'cause I do the same thing.
100%. And look, there's an underlying tone of everything we're talking. You know, it's that human interaction.
Yeah.
Personal service.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, and you just those opportunities, you know, the amount of times I've had conversations, I've bumped into, you know, I remember Ollie, who you've met, my son works with.
Yeah.
We did a deal a couple of years ago with a client whereby I bumped into someone in the street, in Great Portland Street, conversation pursued, and 6 months later we've acquired some space for someone.
Yeah.
You're not going to get that working from home.
That's
it's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
I mean, you're not always going to be in the same room, and you know, Teams and Zoom and these types of calls are you know, they're very important, you know, in order to get things moving. If for example,
There's a
a
benefit
client
to
or
everything,
colleagues
isn't
are
there?
not
You know,
are not in the office, but you know, for me culturally, you know, in terms of speed and getting decisions made, you know, for example, you know, I work very closely with my clients' accountants, say on service charges and rent collections and you know and reporting into clients. And
of course.
when we're asked certain questions, we could just go into, you know, sit next to each other at the desk and you know, get an email together and get it out to clients and make a decision there and then. And you know, not to say you can't do that at home. It's just doing it face to face is always better.
Yeah, it's different, isn't it? I like face to face. I mean, I'm a bit old school in that sense.
Yes.
I hate presentations on Teams and you know things like that. Sometimes they're a necessity.
Could be awkward sometimes.
Well, for me, it just doesn't work. You know, I mean, I'm quite people orientated anyway, so I like that interaction. I think that I find that to be really, really important. And without it, I struggle. You know, I do.
Yeah.
I genuinely struggle if I don't have those.
And listen, as an employer, I'd be concerned if someone sat there and sort of said, you know, from the off, I want to be working from home 1-2 days. You know, unless there was obviously each situation needs to be dealt
flexible
with.
working reasons for it.
Yeah, if there are,
understandable.
100%.
Yeah,
But you know, I kind of like, again, maybe I'm getting too old, but if you'd have said to me 15, 20 years ago, working from home, I'd be like, who?
Yeah. I wouldn't be.
You know, where's that come from? You know, you wouldn't be able to comprehend the idea of someone, you know, a company having to offer a work from home policy.
I wouldn't be the surveyor I am today if I was working from home more than I am in the office.
I agree.
You know, I think, you know, all the experience I've gained has been around, you know, experienced property managers and surveyors in the general practice world, learning off the best and building my own knowledge and experience. And as I said earlier about the sponge, you know, if you're coming into the industry, you want to sponge it all up. You don't want to be doing that remotely. You want to be around the experienced surveyors and learning from them, because ultimately when you're the next generation coming through, you know, you don't want there to be necessarily a gap in service to the clients. And
no, but let me bring you on to that, because I think that that's a bit of a controversial subject, boys, because as the next generation comes through, and you know, I know that these two boys are the next generation, but there's lots of people sorry, that's our tech team, guys, by the way. You met Ruben over Christmas, but you will meet Finn one day. You know, as the new generation comes in, they are very much more inclined from a technology perspective. They're less inclined to pick up the phone and have a conversation, less inclined to want to have a face-to-face meeting and so on and so forth. So how do we as professionals, because we're all a little bit older, I would say, you know, we're a bit long, I certainly feel long in the tooth. How do we deal with that next generation coming into the workspace with our attitudes towards...
You've got to adapt.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's an interesting question.
It's a good question.
I mean, you've got to adapt, and you know, obviously, you mentioned the point before about, you know, AI and systems and making yourself more efficiency. But ultimately, culture is built by being around each other.
I don't disagree.
But at the same time, it is a people business property.
Yeah.
I'm going to go deep here.
Well, I want you to go deep. That's what I want.
You
I
know,
want deep
I like
conversations.
coming in with my...
This is what I like.
These guys are young guys.
Yeah.
Look, time as human beings is our greatest commodity.
I agree, yeah.
Right? No one will ever be able to turn back the clock.
No.
So embrace it.
Yeah.
But be mindful that it is your greatest commodity. So be very aware of how you use it.
Yeah.
and I know I've kind of gone on about this speed and you know, I'm not on Facebook, I'm not on Insta, I'm not on TikTok because I use my eyes to see what's around me.
You'll be on YouTube
right?
soon.
Everyone's but at the end of the day, everyone's got a story.
That's true.
Right?
Yeah.
Everyone's got a story. And if you invest time in people, you'll be amazed at some of the people you'll meet, the stories you hear. And I don't want to harp on, but I'm involved in lots of different other things where with people that are just the most phenomenal stories. They are like warriors, heroes, but it takes time to do that. And so with the answer to your question, how do we convey that to these guys? It's kind of be present.
Yeah.
You know, there is a lot of noise around the generation that's coming through.
No, there is
so
isn't
much
there? Yeah,
noise.
there is. There's loads.
Like literally, it's like what do I do? What do I look at first?
It's like we're scared of them.
But you have to understand that you know, AI could write you a poem.
Yeah.
AI could pull out an absolute banger of a loves tune. But ask AI the meaning behind it. What was the motivation behind it?
Agreed.
You're not going to get an answer.
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
And so life is the best educator, I believe, that one could, you know, you can until you breathe it, live it, you're not going to know it. And so
that's why you need to be
I
in the
would say
office.
to these guys, correct. Yeah, you can sit at home, you can be at arm's length, but then, like I said something very early on, we're a product of the influences surround us.
That's
If
true.
you're sitting around four walls.
Yeah. That's what influences
Correct.
you.
If it, you know, you'll learn from people. You know, with Ollie, I tried to bring him into every single meeting so that he could, as
we
Daniel said,
had a meeting yesterday,
correct,
didn't we?
learn as much as he can. And I think just be really mindful of how you use your time. You know, if your time is allocated to a screen and engaged in other people's content, you're going to miss the content that's around. You know,
that's very true.
And everything is relationship driven. You've got to,
And that's the nuts and bolts.
and put time and effort. You know, I say to my own kids, right, strive for the best in life. If watches, houses, cars, holidays are your thing, work hard for them and you earn them honestly, good luck to you.
Yeah.
But to me, the principles by which you live your life are the most important thing. And you have to earn those.
Yeah.
I've met a lot of people that think they should be respected because
I agree
you can
with
buy
you.
it.
Yeah.
To me, that's the lowest form.
Yeah.
If you can walk in a room or walk out of a room and someone speaks about you in a respectful manner,
In a positive manner, highly.
you're a rich man in my world.
No, I agree.
Right?
I don't
Because you
disagree with
can't
that.
buy that.
No.
Right? You have to earn it and you have to work hard and you have to be honest.
Yeah.
And that's why I said I will never, ever compromise my reputation because I would genuinely be haunted by the fact if someone said, I don't trust the bloke.
Yeah, that's very true.
That would haunt me, you know?
Yeah.
So I think my message would be there's a lot of noise around you and use it in a smart way. Don't ignore it. It's here. Use it. But never let it replace what's real.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sorry if that was too deep.
No, it's not too deep. I was just thinking about the best way to sort of continue it. But I don't disagree with that. I guess an element of my question is, how do you start that connection, Colin? So completely agree with everything you said.
Investing time. So like I said to you, if I had someone come in using the work experience as an example and just showed them no respect, you know, they thank me. Oh, we thank you to you and to Daniel and my colleagues for giving us this. I say thank you. Thank you for the time, for actually being bothered to see what our industry is about. And they're like, what?
Yeah.
You know, I won't mention, but I had one person, I'm not going to call him a kid, it's derogatory, one person come in and he was like emotional. At the end of it, he was in tears to the point that Ollie left the room. Ollie left the room to go and get something for the photocopier, came back in, and this is in tears.
Really?
Right, and Ollie kind of like is on messaging me, what have you done? Right? And he's like, do you know what? No one showed me this respect and the amount of time and the effort that you've put into this week.
Really?
And I said, you deserve it, mate.
Yeah.
You know, and he'll walk away, if nothing else, and hopefully go, I was at Metros for a week and had the most insane experience. Now, if nothing comes of that, great. You never know who I mentioned to, but there was no ulterior motive for me.
Yeah.
It was just to empower him to go, right, you're here to learn about what our industry is all about. I'm going to invest a few days of my time, as much as I can give you of me.
Yeah, of course, yeah. That's quite sad, actually, that someone said that to you, that, nobody's given them that time before. That's actually quite...
These adolescents that are coming out of school, uni, that are expected to make decisions. They're 16, 17.
Yeah.
There's pressure. Or don't get me started. The educational system is draconian.
Oh no, I don't.
So archaic. There is a place for history, geography, maths. But when are we going to teach life skills? When are we going to, our economy is in the state it's in. The world's in. When are we at 11, 12, 13 going to teach our kids about what a mortgage is? What's an interest only? What's a savings account? What are stocks and shares?
What's tax?
What's tax, right?
Yeah.
Why aren't we doing life skills in school?
I know, I agree.
Right, they should be as important.
Yeah.
As I said, there's a place for history and maths, but surely at that age, as these kids go, at 15, they're making choices about or 14, what exams they're going to, and their career path follows suit.
This is the point, Colin. People, this next generation, they need to be in the office to build that confidence, to learn off of the experienced professionals.
Correct.
and understand how people respect each other, and and working through a solution to a problem, and speaking to their colleagues about things going on in their personal life, as you say, around what is a mortgage. I'm looking to buy a property. Any thoughts? And just for the general chit chat in the kitchen, and that all comes into it. And I mean that's lovely to hear. What Colin was saying, and about obviously different soon to be graduates, or students looking to decide which path they're going to come in to see outside of the business. And it goes back to I keep repeating about the Metros culture. Yeah. That's what it's about. We respect each other. Yeah. And anyone that comes for our doors that wants to, understand how it works within the different departments. It's like with the post yesterday on LinkedIn, with one of our students that came in and from uni, and he put out a lovely message. We wanted him to see how we operate as a business, that we care about what we do. We care about the people we work with, work for, and and that comes into the output, as I said before, about the results. It's a results business, but ultimately it's a people business. And,
no, it is, yeah.
And
well, there's nothing wrong with making a profit and things like that. You know what I mean? Like there's expectations in life, isn't there? I also think as well, like talking about the education system, I think that sometimes the education system doesn't teach people coming out of school and so on and so forth that there are responsibilities associated with going into adult life and so on and so forth, and that should really be taught as well, because how you're treated at school isn't necessarily how you're going to be treated in working life.
But I don't blame the teachers, because they're the victim of a system that has to tick boxes, and if Charlie, Peter, Helen, Joe, or whoever, by the time they're 13, haven't worked out they're going to be at this uni studying history and politics, it's kind of like, now it shouldn't be like that.
No.
There are brilliant people out there that have different ways of thinking. Yeah. Just, it may not be an academic way, but doesn't mean they're not an academic, or they can't see, they're brilliant minds. Yeah. But in terms of the current school system...
I know, it's terrible. But it's Victorian still, isn't it? Correct. It's still designed for people to go out into cotton factories when they finish.
Again, if you look back at the beginning, I said, teachers that teach people... and not pupils will get better results. Doctors that treat people and not patients will get better results. Yeah, it's very true. Right, if you look back in your life and the most kind of engaging relationships that you've had, they may not have been long but it have been someone that you felt really got you. Yeah. Took time, yeah. Correct.
I agree.
Like, I'll never forget that bloke that just went out of his way
for no reason. Yeah. Or what felt like no reason.
Correct.
Yeah, that's very true.
But this is what I was saying about, obviously, if you go into work and studying, if you want the best of both worlds, I've got, obviously you've got work hard, and I had to work hard, and that's in my view, that was a successful way for me. It's not for everybody, but that's the way you get that work and life experience, as well as the study side of it.
But I do think that's the key, isn't it, Dan? And I think that's the problem with the education system. The education system right now is set up as if it is for everybody, but if you judge a goldfish by its ability to climb a tree, that goldfish is never going to achieve anything.
The two biggest problems,
and that's kind of the way it is,
I think, at the moment, are the education system and the socials, because the socials have got algorithms that if you're looking at something, and I'm not a tech person, but they're going to be pumping content through
Yeah.
that is appropriate to the kind of stuff you. And as I said, if you step out of that and go, life is the best educator, go live it.
Yeah.
Go see it, go experience it, taste it, smell it, feel it.
Yeah.
Right? Whatever that is in terms of, in our world, like I said to you, encourage people, go work, do stuff. I see these, they literally riddled with anxiety and about what I'm going to do. And I'm saying to them, like, it's irrelevant what you do now. Like, it's not a life choice.
No.
You're 18, 19. If you need to step back, move sideways, do it. Poor analogy again, but there's a reason why on the motorway there are signs, tiredness kills.
Yeah.
If life was 70 mile an hour,
All the
one
time.
road, we'd all fall asleep,
Yeah.
and it'd be a pretty boring journey.
That's very true.
Right?
Yeah.
You're going to have to come off the motorway. You're going to need to change cars. Someone's going to hit your car. You're going to have a puncture. It's not what happens to us in life. It's how we deal with it.
I agree.
And as Dan was saying much earlier, you learn the lessons. And again, I'm a huge, huge believer in this day and age, and the younger generation are always looking for the bigger margins.
Yeah.
Let's buy Bitcoin. I'm rich today and I'm bust, right? I promise you, the biggest wins in life come from the smallest margins.
Keep the needle moving.
Yeah.
And one thing you said about the tech savvy next generation, I was saying to my nephew, he's studying international business and Mandarin.
Oh, cool.
He's looking to do a sandwich year next year and go work overseas in Asia. But I said to him, you need to make yourself stand out, and he was like, "How? LinkedIn."
Yeah.
LinkedIn, in the younger generation, they're all tech savvy. Yeah. If it's free marketing.
I love a bit of LinkedIn. I don't know if you've noticed,
but we love it too.
Yeah.
And it's so important that you're putting yourself out there.
That's
Not just liking and sharing posts, actually
Commenting.
giving a view on a certain subject that's interesting you, or and building business relationships as well on that side of it, and then seeing what the next events are coming up and going there, and then, as you say, taking a video or a photo with a group of your colleagues that are uni or soon to be colleagues. Please God, he banks a job shortly, and it's just so important that you're regularly. I see it as part of my role. I'm literally on LinkedIn all the time. Seeing what I can post and share, and comment on, and it's just so important.
Well, we kind of live in that world, don't we? Around socials. But they are talking at the minute. It's quite prevalent in the news, isn't it? That they're actually looking at banning social media for under 16s. I have to be honest. I don't think that's a bad thing.
I don't either.
I've got a 15-year-old daughter. I've got a 13-year-old son.
100%.
And I have to be honest. I would agree with that. I really would.
And I don't know if I did in the last podcast that we did, but I actually stated that, in my humble opinion, it should be.
Yeah, I think you did actually.
Yeah, I just.
Yeah, it just causes a lot of damage.
100%.
And kids aren't being kids. It goes back to what you said before about actually walking around to knock on your friend's house.
You become insular.
Yeah,
it's like,
yeah.
And look, I'll say something again. 30 years ago, if you'd have asked me what an influence was, it was someone that changed the world positively.
Yes. Now it's anybody.
Now you can put a straw through one nose and out the other ear, and you've got 3 million followers, and you're influencing people. I mean, seriously, what's that about?
Yeah, I agree.
If you're going to, but maybe there'll be people out there that are calling me old past it and but I really don't. And interestingly, and I'm going on hearsay here because I'm not on any of those socials.
Yeah,
I did get told some time ago I needed to be on LinkedIn, so I am.
Yeah.
I don't use it as much as I should, but that's because I'm just not used to. But I did hear that the socials were having a bit of a hit back or downturn, whatever it might be, on the sense that people now can't distinguish what's real and what's AI.
Yeah,
and therefore there are so many I don't know. It just, as I said,
they call them deep fakes, don't they? So it's like it is very very difficult.
I'll trust your word.
No, that's what it is, isn't it? It is that, isn't it? You young lads, deep fakes. Yeah, that's what they call it. The AI stuff, isn't it? Yeah, deep fakes. Yeah. I honestly don't. But some of them you can tell. I was actually thinking, I was on the train today and I was on a social media. I won't say which one because I don't want to promote them. But they've started doing these things now where it's like AI generated thing, but it's like celebrities from movies and things like that, like Heat and stuff like that. And what's basically happening is you've got Al Pacino when he was in Heat in 1996, how he looked then, shaking hands with Al Pacino as he looks now. And I just thought that's weird. And then you've got people that have died in it, like Val Kilmer. So you've got Val Kilmer when he was in Heat, but then Val Kilmer at the point he died, but with angel wings. And I just sort of thought, I just remember looking at it thinking, what's the point in this?
I wouldn't mind somebody doing a video so I could see myself dunk a ball for the first time in my life.
Yeah, that'd be good. Yeah. So,
alley-oop and dunking it Shaq style.
Yeah. Hit a 6 at Lords or something like that. You know what I mean? That'd be quite nice, wouldn't it? Score at Old Trafford, which would be quite good.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's really interesting. So moving away from people and generations and things like that, obviously we live in quite a technical age, gents. I'm sure that, I think we've all seen changes across technology with the Internet of Things, AI becoming more prevalent, particularly over the last 2 years. I'm guessing you guys deal with CAFM systems and all manner of things across the, the sites that you deal with and so on. What do you see? I'm not going to ask AI specifically because I always ask that question, so I'm going to ask something different. What do you see as being the major changes from a technology perspective across our industry over the next 5 years?
I mean, from a property management point of view, making yourself more efficient, right? We're working through things. We've got systems in place. That is the most important. But you don't want to take away from everything we've been saying on this podcast about the personal service. Right?
I agree. Yeah.
But look, we are in a data-driven world.
We are.
And using AI to meet those needs to make you more professional, more efficient, is a major thing, and that is the way it's going. But you don't want it to, affect the balance between providing a personal service and, not being in a room with people and just letting it take over. Under the RCS, we now have to do some AI CPD.
Oh, really? Right.
As part of training. It's a requirement. And it's important, and you want to make sure that you're using it to provide the best service or to support you providing the best service to your landlord and tenant clients. And that's the way it's going to go. And you've got to get on that train. It's really important, especially in property management in a fast moving world. Being more efficient is really important. And, there's a lot of companies out there doing all different types of systems. And, property management for me, as you can tell, I'm quite passionate. I love it. And, I want to be able to make sure, with my colleagues that we're providing a service with, if it means that we have to use a certain platform to be able to do things quicker in order that we can get into a room with a client and, and deal with that face-to-face interaction.
But it makes sense to do so.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Technology, it's I think the next 5 years are going to be fascinating. Yeah, I really do. Yeah,
I think that efficiency, as Dan said, one of the biggest things for us in terms of the just numbers that affected our business. As I said, we've got 5 billion under management.
Yeah,
collecting 350 million plus of service charge rent. Cyber fraud is something that's very much prevalent, sophisticated.
Yeah,
and the size of the business that we are now in terms of tech, we've got to make sure that
it's a big risk for you. Yeah.
Well,
what's something you got to counter. Anyway.
Correct.
Yeah.
And we've got to do as much as we can, as best we can, and we're engaging with some very, very intelligent partners to try and do what we can to counter that risk. Yeah. And we wouldn't be able to do that without tech. So that's an important part of the business.
I mean, if you're not using certain platforms in the property management world, let's just focus on that for a second.
Yeah.
Your competitors will.
Yeah, of course, yeah. And they get an edge.
And they get an edge.
Yeah.
So you've got to keep adapting, to keep the needle moving, to meet the needs. As I say, it's a balance between service, you say, about trying to make a profit as well. And, providing best-in-class service.
There's nothing wrong with making a profit, let's be honest. I think it's important to say that, It really is. And I think some people get scared sometimes about using the profit word. But, I think making a responsible profit allows you to invest appropriately in your business, which makes your business better. And then, in turn, the client has a better overall experience.
And also, in terms of that next generation, if you're a company that's tech savvy, that's a massive selling point to any new surveyor or wannabe surveyor that wants to come through the industry.
Yeah, I use AI. I ain't gonna lie. I adopted it and started training myself to use it 2 years ago because I felt it would become an important part of what I do on the day to day.
For me, it's like a psychological barrier.
Yeah,
because I'm so protective over, as I said, that reputation that I just don't trust tech or AI.
Really?
Well, certain things, look, data gathering, data information, personally what I do has changed significantly over the years where, data analysis, financial modelling is a daily part of my life now.
Yeah.
10 years ago, 15 years, it wouldn't have been.
Right.
Even to the point that I was with one of the guys today who had his spreadsheet, and I was there with a piece of paper, and we got to the same number. He's like, how'd you do that? I was like, I'll explain another
Old school
time.
subs, yeah.
100%.
Yeah, yeah.
And even though he's like, you don't need to do that, I'm sitting there because
anyway.
I had to do it, I'll give you an example. We once had a graduate in who was I gave him doing sort of a very basic valuation for us. I'm sure, used some form of AI or tech to come up with the valuation on this building, which I knew was about $1 million, $1.25 million.
Yeah.
In terms of value, by looking at the headline and obviously the experience and knowledge that I have.
Yeah.
He's come back to me on 4 occasions and told me the building's worth 10 million quid, and I've said, just go back, have a look at the numbers.
Yeah.
So, kept coming back. No, I'm confident. So on the 4th occasion, I said, look, I'll give you one more shot at this. I don't think you're right. Just come back. No, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Anyway, I looked through the calculations and the decimal point was in the wrong place.
Oh, no.
And it came out at 1.15 mil. And I said to him, there's my piece of paper that I gave you 20 minutes ago. He's like, how do you know that?
Yeah.
I said, because I know your number was wrong and I know what those type of buildings were.
Yeah, of course.
That's a classic example
That's
of
experience as well, though, isn't it?
Yeah, but
And a certain style of emails as well when you're writing to
correct.
people.
You can't.
I know when someone's written to me using an AI platform, right?
Yeah.
I think everyone's starting to figure that out.
Yeah.
And it's part of putting your personal touch on the service that you're providing. And there's certain things that you'd want to use it for. Perhaps to what's the best place to go. In Greece, that while you're there for the 10 days or something. And you ask AI to give you to spit it out. But at the end of the day,
It's good for research. I use it for research. I like it for research. So I'm trying to buy a house at the minute. So utilising it for research is actually quite.
That's why I said data gathering is
interesting.
brilliant, and analysis
really
and stuff like
like
that.
Because it gives you quite a few options and things like that. So I find that very beneficial. But I do agree. If I'm writing an email, it should be personal.
From my perspective, I've been in this industry over 20 years. I've done all my qualifications. I'm a Chartered Surveyor. I've read so many leases till I'm blue in the face.
Yeah.
Right. It's that traditional advice to a client. But as I said, you want to utilise these types of systems because you've got to manage compliance, you've got to have systems in place, and you want to use it that it's going to, enhance that service that you are giving to people. But you don't want to replace the people side of it.
No, I agree.
Well, look. Use the medical industry, medtech, right? Some of the advances in medical technology are off the chart.
Yeah.
Lives are being saved right now as we're sitting here talking this podcast that wouldn't have been saved 5 years ago because you can now do what you can do, and it's insane.
Yeah.
We could, like you could, go on, in our world, I could very easily find out who owns a building. If I didn't know it already, chances are I probably would.
Right.
And know all the information and data required around a particular transaction. That's great.
Yeah.
But the fact that I could then pick up the phone to the owner, who I've had a relationship with for 20 years, you can't get out of tech.
No, you can't. No.
Right, and he says, Colin, come and have a chat.
Yeah.
And a deal happens.
Yeah.
So that's tech is here. The advances in our industry are phenomenal.
Yeah.
It's going to get better, and it's going to give even more support to to us as a business, to the other companies out there, to provide a best in class service. But as Colin said, you don't want to take it away from that personable side of it.
No, I agree because there's a race at the minute towards AGI, isn't there? Which is artificial general intelligence, which is where they turn around and say that's where sort of universal income comes in and things like that because it'll take over a large proportion of Elon Musk.
The workforce. I was just about to say. Yeah. So he was saying, don't save at the moment.
No, I read that article as well.
Don't save at the moment because effectively, if 30 million people are made unemployed, the government will have to, through welfare systems, be effectively paying salary. You read the same.
I read the same one, because Elon Musk he's also said that within 5 to 10 years there'll be 1 billion robots like his Optimus is doing all kind of jobs and so on. You won't need to work. There'll be so much that, you know, of everything in terms of food, in terms of wealth, in terms of this productivity across the globe will be. This is Elon Musk, so it's not me, right? Productivity will be at levels that we can't even imagine. So the abundance that will be available for
like the
people.
bionic man. You know, I mean, look, when you go to a building, you know, first impressions, fundamentals, right? So
I
if you've
agree,
got, you know, especially if you've got site-based staff.
Yeah.
I know there's buildings out there and there's people looking at having droids in their reception, or they've got them in their reception. It's not
holograms and
it's
things like
just
that,
not the same.
No, it isn't. No, I agree.
But again, you know,
I won't do Abba Voyage.
Well, you're
Definitely
not.
not.
It's not real. Which building shall I put you in?
Correct.
And you know, I don't know, but again, you've got to adapt, because if that's the way the market's going, you've got to be able to move with it. But you know,
well, I think it's important. You've always got to have an open mind. Like, you know, you can have opinions about certain things,
absolutely.
and, you know, but you've got to have an open mind. And if an industry moves in a certain direction, it doesn't make any sense to pull against, you know, the way that the wind is blowing. You might as well go along with it and then try and, you know, do your best with it.
Look, we all want to be intelligent in the decisions we make.
Yes.
And there is no doubt that tech assists us. It assists Dan in what he does. It certainly assists me, because, you know, we can make, as I said, hopefully some smart decisions for ourselves, for clients, when we're analysing data that ordinarily we wouldn't have the ability. Correct.
Yeah.
And so from that point of view, it's got a tremendous place in our market.
and that comes down to the efficiency point.
Correct.
You know, getting that data quickly to be able to get the advice out to the client. You know, if you're using it to meet that need, you know, you've got to go with it.
Yeah, but if we get to sit on a
give you that
beach with a
support.
pina colada and not have to work, then that's not bad either, is it? You know?
I love working. You know, to be fair, I couldn't. Yeah,
No, I don't think I
give
could
up.
either. I like it as well. You know what I mean? I have weekends when I end up working, you know, because I do enjoy it. To be fair, I like those interactions, which is good. All right, moving away from technology, let's talk about sustainability. Environment, sustainability. Obviously, there's been huge changes across our industry in this, across innovation, use of different vehicles, agents for cleaning, lots of different things from a sustainability perspective. But what I want to ask you is different. You know, America is moving towards a slightly different approach with the environmental perspective, DEI, and all that stuff. We're usually about 5 years behind. Do you think that we will go down that route as well? Because there's a lot of pressure on the government across these things at the minute. What's landlords' take on it, and so on? Where do you see that in 5 years' time? Is it gonna continue on the current trajectory, or do you foresee a change in our approach?
There'll constantly be changes.
Yeah.
You know, as you get different, you know, different parties in Parliament, you know, it's just going to constantly be a moving goalpost.
Yeah.
But ultimately, people care about the environment.
I agree. Yeah.
You know, and about the future, and you know, and the changes in the weather, and you know, potential flood risks, and you know, in the buildings that they're occupying. You know, around their social, you know, social, you know, side of it, and you know, and make sure that they've got green, you know, that they're green, and there's, you know, there's green leases. You know, it just depends on the building, and it depends on what comes back to what Colin was saying earlier about the type of property tenants want to be in. But look, it comes down to around the life cycle of a building. You know, and you know, there's a lot of chat about heat pumps, and you know, it's you know what, you know, they're expensive. You know, and you know, and there's that balance, you know, with people who really care and they want to do something about it, and you know, and then it's going to cost, you know, 3-5 times what you've got currently. You've got to find that balance, and it's going to be a challenge. And you know, there's a lot of buildings out there that are at the end of their life cycle. You know, where you're thinking about, you know, changing your heating, ventilation, air conditioning, so HVAC. And you know, you've got to be making certain wise decisions, because you know, is it a landlord cost? Is it a service charge? Is it you know, as I say, landlord capex, capital expenditure? You know, is, you know, lease levs come into all of these decisions. You know,
EPC ratings.
EPC ratings. You know,
that are huge.
and you know, and the point around, you know, for example, I've got a couple of buildings. You know, again, we, you know, at Metrics, you know, we keep a, you know, very detailed log of all our buildings in order to give the best advice, and work with a number of consultants.
Of course,
that you know, that partner up with us to give, you know, to support our clients where needed. But as you say, with EPC ratings, you know, if you're, you know, you don't want to be you want to be proactive.
Yeah.
You know, you want to be looking at your building holistically and long term, and
Yeah.
you know, about, you know, if you've got a building where you've got HVAC that's reached the end of its life cycle, you know, you haven't got energy efficient lighting, and you've got a lot of costs coming up, you've got to have a plan.
Yeah.
And you know, there's a lot of landlords out there that need to work with managed agents like us in order to work through that plan.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
You know, and
Well, otherwise your asset falls short.
Yeah.
You know, if,
Of course it does. Yeah.
You know, on the leasing side, you've got a problem if EPC ratings don't meet requirements.
standard, yeah.
Secondly, on the
Rating.
capital market side, if we're looking at acquiring or disposing of assets, and EPC ratings aren't meeting requirements, it's a serious issue that you have to address.
It's a huge challenge.
Massive.
And tenants are knowledgeable. They want to know what's going on in their building. You know, they want to know how the utilities are running. You know, are you working with a green utility company on electricity? You know, they want to know these things. They want that data because they've got their own shareholders they need to report
you've got
to.
scope 1, 2, and 3 requirements, haven't you? That you've got to report to from a sustainability perspective.
But it's going to carry on changing. But if you're not thinking about it, you know, everyone is. I mean, but if you're not, and you know, you're concerned out there about your building, about what we're going to do. You know, got lease expiries coming up with, you know, say an average term certain of say 2-3 years, and got aging plant. You know, the lift's getting old, and you know, you need to think about a plan. But that's the life cycle of property management. You know, you're managing buildings that are, you know, post completion, and you know, at the start of their life cycle, and then you're managing buildings halfway through to the end, and dealing with these types of issues. And you know, even with buildings that, you know, you're building out, whether it be pre-existing or new developments, you've got to be looking at all these things.
Yeah,
you know,
of course,
making sure that you've got energy efficient, you know, systems in your building.
Yeah.
Because you know, obviously you have a different tiered market. I would expect with the type of tenants that you're going to attract, and you know, and obviously the EPC point is very important. You know, everyone's got to get it to a, you know, as high as, you know, quite high up now. So.
Yeah. Well, I mean, sometimes it's just about doing the right thing because it's the right thing to do, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, which I think is really important, to be fair. I think, you know, things like AI might actually help with this. Or we could get Elon Musk to start focusing on fusion energy. Then we're all sorted, aren't we? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But look, it's...
Look, in real estate, the fundamental base is people want to maximise the value of their asset.
Yes.
And in order to do that, they've got to ensure that sustainability is something that
is at the forefront.
Absolutely.
It's you know, you can't ignore it. You know, I mean, everyone knows what's going on in the world with, you know, with the weather patterns, and you know, we're at the front and facing of it all, and you know, we're here to advise clients with our consultants, and you know, landlords need to be working with their tenants, and you know, and obviously that, you know, I'm hearing things such as, you know, tenants are saying, well, I'll take care of this, but then, you know, obviously when it comes to dilapidations, you've got that to think about as well, and you know, and how leases are being specifically worded, and working with certain type of lawyers around these things, and building surveyors, and you know, make sure that all these things are captured properly. You know, it's an important subject, and it's just going to continuously adapt. And I'm sure when the next election comes around, and whoever gets back in power, or if we've got a new party in, and you know, I'm sure there'll be another set of you know, rules that will change, and it's just going to constantly adapt.
It's too big an oil tanker, isn't it? You know, like you know, the turning circle is just too big. I think we just need to start using technology in a smarter way to help us transition to something that's
even with service charges. You know, I've had a tenant ask me, you know, are the cleaning service partners you're working with using, you know, sustainable products?
Yeah.
You know, people want to know. People, you know, care.
Yeah, well, I mean, we get that every day. You know, and we do. You know, as an organisation, I never mention who I work for, but you know, we do. We understand that more than most. And I do think that I think that it'll continue, but I do think that it's about being clever in your application of the things that you're doing from a sustainability perspective. And there's very easy things that you can do as well. You know,
it's energy management.
It's, you know,
it's, you know, having certain systems within your building where, you know, you're not allowing your lights to run all day. I mean, the amount of times I've walked around London over the years, how many times have you walked around just seeing people's lights are on all night?
Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
and you're thinking,
and there's like one person just sat there.
You know, you see,
on this huge floor, this bank of desks behind him. It's crazy.
I mean, I remember a few years ago there was a post that was put out, and it, you know, it did cause a bit of controversy around it, but it is true. You know, I know there's the security side of it as well, and of course I get all of that. But just going back to the point on data and sort of managing, the compliance side and reporting into landlords and tenants, they want to know how much they're using, and are you logging, for example, the electricity, in terms of certain, if we're working between a certain hours of the day, are you, after that, you're making sure that our building is, running on low usage and and not wasting energy, because ultimately if you're not having these plans in place, you could end up with massive electricity bills,
of course,
which no one's going to thank you for that.
No. My dad used to say to me all the time, stop leaving that light on. If you carry on leaving that light on, I'm going to take £5 off you and set it on fire. Because that's what you do with my money.
We all have a role to play in everything that we are doing,
we do,
from the sort of packaging that we they've got food in it, to as I say, with turning off the lights and
reducing virgin plastics, having recyclable materials.
But this is where I love what I do, because I like to work with my service partners and consultants and colleagues and clients, whether the landlord tenants, and just to look at these types of issues and work through a solution. And having a system. I keep saying this at the beginning of the podcast. In terms of learning these skills from early on, having a system, and and thinking the bigger picture and thinking the long term, not just thinking about like the next 12 months, thinking about what's coming up, and expenditure wise. And when it comes to service charges, I'm always thinking like that. I'm not just thinking about the next budget. I'm thinking about what's going to be happening in a few years' time.
You guys are always on point with the PPM, property plan maintenance.
Absolutely.
Which is, ensuring that obviously you're not just reactive, you're proactive.
Yeah, of course, just to make sure that things are done properly.
Correct.
And
but you adapt your approach to how you adapt to certain buildings. Every building is different, right?
Buildings like people in London, aren't they? I think it's the only city in the world that's like that as well. There's just not one building that's the same as any other. It's brilliant.
But you know what? It's funny. Every time I do come into London on the weekend, and I'm pointing out to family and friends, I've managed that building, I managed this one. I'm just so proud of what we do and what I do, and I'm just passionate about property management. As you said about the life cycle, it's just so important. And when your fire alarm was last installed, and when it's reached the end of its life cycle in terms of parts that could become obsolete, to the emergency lights, to the lifts, and how old are your lifts, when was it installed, is it have you got closed protocol parts in the lift, and just having a plan, because ultimately that is to the benefit of the landlord and tenant. And yes, you're right, AI is there to give you that support. It's looking at all this stuff, to work with you in order to give the best service possible. And as I say, you've got to engage with it, and if you need to adapt. If you're sitting in the old school way of necessarily going to site and then just making notes, and yes, that's important. I remember the day books. I remember the days you'd literally write what I've done on my inspections. Go back to the office, type it all up. I don't do. I use
site inspection.
I use a tablet. I literally deal with it there and then. And I just again, it comes down to efficiency.
As well, I've got to hold my hands up, and I do use the day book.
Do you?
Well, because I suddenly think.
No, that's all right. Some people do.
I tell you why. I still print photos and I mean, I know that's an old one. Of course, because
I do. My wife's the same. Because it is nice
every day. I've got a day book, and at the end of the week, the last thing I do before I leave the office on a Friday is write my Monday.
And you used to know who was a property. Who worked in property with their day books under their arm, back in the day.
I'm a bit old school like that.
But that's good.
It does, if I lose my phone, if my Mac, suddenly
I agree.
Apple decide to say, you know what, we're going to take a bite.
My wife does the same thing. Whenever we go on holiday, she will print the pictures and she puts them in a little photo album, because she's like, no, I have to be able to get it out and look at them. I don't want to go through a phone,
Yeah.
I upgraded my day book. I used to have it like in the back of like a tablet, so I'd write in it. And the notes would go straight onto my PC.
Oh, really?
But my handwriting sometimes could be not great.
I actually struggled to write.
It just created extra work. So I just thought, you know what, it's good, but it's not. It's not.
I spend so much time typing. This is a true story, right? I spend so much time typing or putting things into a device. I literally struggle to write. if I had to sit there and write an entire letter, I think I would go, oh my God, I think I'd get a blister.
Really?
I really do, because I do. I'm like, oh no.
So doing an hour exam, writing.
I think I would struggle. Do you know something?
Do they do that still? Yeah, very much so.
It's a perishable skill.
Yeah, it is
a perishable skill. Yeah. So and because of that, I've literally started writing more now.
But here's a lovely analogy, and it kind of follows the tone upon which we're talking today, right?
Yeah.
Again, probably more so for me and you. If 30, 40 years ago you were feeling, sorry for yourself, right? There was a common saying, keep your head up.
Yeah.
Right? Mm. Whether it be parental or grandpa, they would sit there and go, keep your head up.
Yeah.
Here's the irony. What do these tablets and phones make you do?
Got your head down.
Correct.
Yeah, that's very true. Yeah.
You ever thought about that?
I haven't actually.
There you go.
Yeah.
But there's a reason for everything. But seriously, sit on the tube today, and I guarantee you 97% of the occupants sitting on the tube haven't got a clue what's going on around.
No, that's true.
And it goes back to what I was saying before. Could be a missed opportunity. Could be the love of your life sitting opposite you. It gives you a little smile, but you sat there like that all day.
Yeah, but
and you've missed
the wife
it.
won't be happy, Colin.
No, I'm assuming you're young. I'm assuming you're young these guys. But do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
it's like I was saying about being present,
I agree.
It's just an analogy that you can spend your whole time looking down.
Yeah.
And the whole feeling about, keep your head high and, you feel kind of taller.
No, you do. That's very true, yeah. Well, I mean, some people would actually criticise you if you said keep your head up these days as well,
Yeah. But it's not, that's a whole different,
Yeah. But let's not get into that, but it is, but you would do, wouldn't it? So,
but again, that's like, listen, it's like kind of, we were talking about, I don't know if we'd, with anxiety and stuff, it's fueled by this because if you're constantly searching, looking at what others have got, what others do, you're kind of feeling it's the selflessness within, right? But
that's why you need to focus on your own goals and not look at other people and think, with envy or what, if you've got a certain target, be happy in your own skin. And again, over time, with life experience and whether it be work or personally, and just have a goal and a target, and just focus on yourself. Don't focus what all the noise is outside of that. I agree. And that's why I made the decision not to go to uni full time. Yeah. I wanted to do it the way I wanted to do it, and and there was moments where I missed out on things, but I had a target, and and you just got to sit on that train and stay on it, and not worry about what everything's going on around you, and and go on from there.
But then it's also important sometimes to get off the train when you need to.
Yes,
you've got to be able to recognise when it's all right. That's time to stop.
But that's where if you're in the office and you're around more experienced people, and
you'll find out. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's very true. That's very true. All right, Jen, I think that brings us to the end, gents. I think we've really set the world to rights today.
Yeah, I think we have.
Have you guys enjoyed it?
It's been
absolutely
good.
Yeah,
absolutely.
It's been good. Do you know, I learned loads today, actually. I'd really like to thank you both for coming on. It's been really interesting for me to listen to some of the things that we've chatted about today, particularly around some of the life skills from Colin, which I've really enjoyed.
I didn't know you were a tennis coach.
No, I didn't. Yeah, I had no idea. Yeah. Which is really, really great.
But look, Mark, credit to you because having done this with you before, you immediately engage and make your guests feel very, very comfortable.
I hope so.
You're real. We've been talking about a lot of real stuff today.
Well, that's what we want to do with the pod. Like, I don't want it to be a shiny piece of brass. I want people to really understand what the industry is, and then get excited about it, and then perhaps get involved in it. And I think when you talk about the next generation coming through, when you talk about your experiences, Daniel, and I think that that resonates with people because they're like, oh, I could do that. Yeah. I could do that. I could be a Colin, or I could be a Daniel, or I could even be a Mark, and I think that, if we continue to do that, I think that that's fantastic. So thank you ever so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
It's been an absolute pleasure.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
Thank you, Mark.
All right, guys. Brilliant podcast today. I'd like to thank you all for tuning in. Signing off, as ever, if you can't be good, be bad. Bye-bye.